And let me introduce David now. So David has a unique view on, Zenner is head of consumer relations at Elia. And Elia is the TSO in the Belgian energy market. It is also considered one of the top 5 in Europe in terms of dynamics and so on, and innovation. And David will talk about the central role of the end consumer in the electricity system of tomorrow. David has a unique view on customer centricity in the market that always has been dominated by product-centering approach because it has been a very traditional business. Renewable energy and digitalization are changing this very quickly. David, I heard your story a few months ago. I can't wait to share it with our audience. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. Meanwhile, first of all, Wim, thank you very much for having the opportunity to present to the audience our view on the evolution we are facing and what is the role of digitalization in this story, because of course it's quite crucial. So indeed, like you mentioned, we are the TSO active in Belgium and partially in Germany as well. So we are a regulated monopoly. We're not a classical commercial company. We operate the grid and make sure that the lights are on. At least that was our key mission, and it still is. But we need to prepare now to the big challenges ahead of us. And before entering into what are we concretely doing and what is the role that digitalization is playing, I just want to briefly state some big challenges that are ahead of us. It is not on the number of here on the slides and the timing, but it is to show that the electricity system actually in Europe is facing a tremendous challenge that is only accelerating by the European Green Deal. And those challenges, you can wrap them up in 2 big categories. On one hand, we will integrate more and more renewable energy sources like wind and solar, which comes with a certain intermittence, of course, as that is quite natural. But on the other hand, we will also accelerate in the electrification of our consumption. If we want to go for the targets that the European Commission is setting forward to have a decarbonized society by 2050, then of course this will partially go through the electrification of the system, where you will see, and you see it already in some countries, popping up more and more electrical vehicles, but also heat pumps and also household batteries. And those numbers are really changing a lot the system and are, like I said, very much accelerated by the Green Deal and the clearly stated ambition of the European Commission. Changing the system in the way we will operate it. With the system where now we're facing quite classical ways of production based on mainly on gas or on nuclear power. Changing it to a system where we will face, for example, the equivalent of 20 nuclear power plants that are up and running in the Belgium system, which is not a very big system, but that are up and running when there is sun and when there is wind, but could be gone when there is no sun and no wind present. But also on the consumption side, with a million cars in the Belgium system, which are just plugging in their car when they come home between 5 and 7 in the evening, and just start charging, stupid charging, if I can say so, without thinking of the consequences on the grid. And so we should be mastering this, knowing that the Belgium system is not a very big system, and that we are talking of a system between 6 to 14 equivalent nuclear power plants, if I can say so. If you see the tremendous numbers of decentralized production that we have to integrate into that, then you can see that it is a quite heavy challenge, knowing that electricity is not something that you can store, at least not in big proportions. So this is really the challenge we are facing, and to be able to respond to that challenge and to bring some solutions. My message is definitely not this won't work. It's the opposite. It will work, at least if we make the demand more intelligent. It is quite important that we move to a demand where the intelligence will make sure that demand will follow more the generation than the situation we know today. If you look at the system today, you have a system when you come at home and you switch on your light, then there is some central production unit that is producing a little bit more. Well, tomorrow we need to go to a system where the demand will be driven by digitalization, intelligent enough to adapt to the production means. I give an example, because maybe this comes from time to time with some doom scenarios. I don't need to charge my car if the algorithms that I have behind that are smart enough to see that maybe the day after tomorrow I don't need my car. So maybe I will not directly charge my car, but charge my car during the day when there is an abundance of solar production, for example, or when there is a lot of wind present. So by making the demand more intelligent, we are sure that we can evolve to a system which can manage those huge amounts of renewable intermittent energy that comes into the system, and which can manage the electrification and the need for electrical energy into the system as well. And this is this challenge, this fantastic challenge, I would say, it can be met thanks to mainly two big evolutions that we see. On the one hand, the digitalization. It is important that, and the technology is present in the system, that we make, like I said, the demand more intelligent, that it can react on when there is a lot of energy production available. This means also that, and in some countries this is already in place, in other not yet, that we have to accelerate also on the digital meter, because of course, if you want to react on the real-time production, then you should at least have some more insights on your consumption. You should at least have the information of what you are consuming right now. And this comes also with the massive exchange of data, which is necessary in order to be able to manage the system. And that's one aspect, but the other aspect, and I think it's quite similar as what Sergio was stating, is that the role of the consumer becomes also more relevant. We see that the consumer is changing the way he experiences his energy consumption. Consumers are more moving towards asking to have the charging of their electrical vehicle with the solar panels on their roof. Or they want to consume more green, for example. Not only end consumers, also industrials are asking. If you look at the big announcements Google made last year in September, they want to make sure that what they are consuming is matching physically what renewable production is producing at that moment. And this, of course, gives a lot of new opportunities, because this will also help to bring the necessity, flexibility in the demand towards the system, and will enable us to maintain, and that is really the role and why we are so much focusing on this. The role of Elia is to maintain that system in balance, and so we need all that flexibility that can be brought by the demand. What are we working then concretely on? Three major axes. First of all, an evolution of the market design in the energy sector is on how we exchange and how we sell and buy energy, electricity. That's one building block. We are working on data and real-time communication layers in order to be able to exchange the data very easily, data that are the property of the consumers, of course, but allowing and facilitating actually the exchange of data from the end consumer to the service provider of his choice is really key. If we also want to work on the third building block, and that is facilitating new business models in the energy sector. We believe that that energy is changing from just a kind of consumption to consumption of electrons towards a more need for services. So an evolution to energy as a service, where, for example, instead of just consuming, you will be offered a kind of comfort level at house, for example, 20 degrees in your house, and that the rest is taken care of new service companies. So that are really actually the three building blocks, and I will go a little bit deeper into that and show on how digitalization is also a big part and key element on that. But I first wanted to show that how we look at the system right now is totally different than a couple of years ago. I think in the energy sector, we are lagging behind on digitalization. I think we are one of the sectors which is less digitized compared to a lot of other sectors. We were just, as you see on the slide, focusing on the lower layer, the physical grid, if I can say so. But we think it's urgent time that we build on that some digital layers, where we make a difference between the layer, the red one, which should be operated by system operators, which is a regulated entity, which just have a role to facilitate some interactions between market parties, which facilitates, for example, the exchange of data from the consumer to the service provider. And then we count on the market operators, on commercial parties, to build up that business layer and service layer to offer in the end the service, the new service towards the end consumers, towards all the consumers in the market. So it's a total change actually on how we are operating the grid. We are not only operating a physical grid, but more and more also limited to the red layer, also operating a digital application layer in order to facilitate the creation of new services. We do not start from blueprint where we determine actually everything ourselves and then just roll out. We try to co-create with market players the new business models of tomorrow. And how do we do that? We've set up some unique ecosystems within the energy market. We call it, it is known under our Internet of Energy project, and you find the website on the slides if you want to have some more information on that. It's an ecosystem that we set up with the transmission system operator, Elia, but also with the distribution system operators. We are acting as a kind of founding fathers of that ecosystem. So we are a little bit the facilitator of those ecosystems, and we bring together companies, market players that are willing to think about new business models of the future. And you see what was very interesting to that is that you see that not only companies that are classically active in the energy sector are coming to those kind of sectors, but also new companies from outside our sector are entering into that ecosystem. For example, banks, big construction companies, but all cities are coming to that ecosystem because they see some potential new business models where they can offer also some services. So it's not anymore from just having one idea and then try to roll out. It is by bringing together those companies, think of new ideas, new business models with the technology revolution that we have that can bring some answers to the needs of the consumer. It's again like in the previous presentation of Sergio. It's very important. We totally agree with what was stated, that the consumer should be at the center and should express actually what are his needs, and it's a response to those needs that the companies are building up. How are we organizing? I don't want to go too much into detail. We are launching a second phase very soon, the 1st of May. And so we see popping up some consortia that are focusing around certain topics, like, for example, electric vehicles or batteries or heat as a service, home management systems, communities. And they are dealing with some challenges that we've asked to deal with. And by doing so, they try to bring up a new idea, which has a concrete business case, and that they can test in an ecosystem with a couple of real consumers that are willing to participate in that testing phase, and that they can validate actually the assumptions they have behind those new business models. So that's the first. That's about the ecosystem, but it is not all about the ecosystem. We need also to make some evolutions in the market design and to evolve to what we call a consumer-centric market design. I just stated some couple of examples that you can imagine, but of course there are many more. But we see in the energy business, for example, if I'm looking at the first in the power purchase agreements, that companies are more looking to buy green energy and to have it also physically green. Like I stated, the example of Google, they want to make sure that at any moment what they buy is not just something with a guarantee of origin, but that it is really coming from a renewable installation. But even on end consumers, imagine that you are the driver of an electrical vehicle and you go for a barbecue with friends. Then of course you would like, and you are charging your car, then of course you would like that the bill of charging your car is not on your friend's bill, but is automatically transferred to your own bill or to your leasing company. But also in the peer-to-peer trading systems, why can't I use the excess of solar panels of my father when he is on holiday or when he is just producing too much energy? So all those needs that we see popping up, we need to find an answer. And it's also beneficiary for the system. If we just want to charge our cars all at the same moment in the evening, then we will face tremendous troubles on the electricity grid. So we need to be smart and to bring in technology that will allow, like for example, Waze is doing, or Google, looking at your agenda, seeing that tomorrow you don't need your car, and looking at the solar forecasting and stating, okay, maybe I won't charge the car overnight, but I will do it around noon the day after because there's a lot of solar energy. But also heating up your house. Have a lot of thermal capacity, so you don't need to make the heat, as we could say, on the moment that you need. You can actually heat up some warm water when there's a lot of solar, and then use it at the evening peak to heat up your house. There are a lot of applications that you can think of. And it is not to the TSO to determine which one should be developed. It's up to the market parties to do so. The only thing that we want to do is make sure that the system is intelligent enough, and that we move from a system where the supplier has a very central role as today, and it's based on historic, there's nothing wrong with it, move to a system where the consumer has more degrees of freedom. The consumer can choose on the service he wants to contract with his service providers. And therefore, we're introducing also a new concept, which is also fundamentally based on what the digital technology can offer. And we want to exchange blocks between appliances behind the meter, behind your head meter, in order to have a possibility to take advantage of new services that are offered by service companies. It is not an obligation. You can still stay in your classical pattern, but at least we are opening. And this is, of course, due to the digital technologies that are in place, that are able to exchange all those blocks of energy. And I won't go into the technology aspects, but I think the audience is more than well aware of possibilities that there are. And by doing so, we leave it open to a lot of market parties to bring the different solutions. We think that this evolution makes it clear that a lot of possibilities will come into the electricity system. What we are doing is within our boundaries of the red layer. So we are not building up the services ourselves. We are just facilitating those exchanges. And by doing so, actually, what we see is that we move from a competition of suppliers right now for your head meter to a competition behind the meter, a competition with your appliances that in the end you will have. Last slide is, like I said, in this discussion, one of the major important elements is an open access to data. If you don't have an open access to data, then of course you can't steer your consumption. You're a little bit blind of what is happening at your house. So there also, what we've put in place is based on the digital meter, on a very easy way, exchange the data with the service providers of your choice. And this, of course, within the limits of the GDPR regulation, stating and giving the possibility to always have a clear view on where your data is going through, with the clear consent management applications behind. But at least at that moment, you give the possibility to the service providers to offer the right service or the service of your choice. Voila. I just want to finish by stating that in our sector, of course, we are ahead of very exciting times, and not only in managing the system, but also in reshaping and reforming a lot of elements in a sector which is far from digital for the moment and is really lagging behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, David. That was great, and I think for most of us an eye-opener because most people don't know the energy sector that way. I think we have a lot of questions, and I also have many questions, but I would like to start with one question. You have been showing very nicely how we can move from a producer-centric system to another system where the customer has a lot of choices and a lot of possibilities. Digitalization plays a role there. You have been mentioning that too, but this is, let's say, how it could be in the future. Question is, where are we now? And I think you probably have to focus on the markets you know best, like Belgium and Germany. And what should be done to get it that far, to get it that far, let's say in the future, let's say in the next 10 years?
Yeah, we are today still in a very supplier-centric system. So for sure, this is still the case. It has to change, and it has to change rapidly to our perception if we want to make sure that we can integrate the renewables, the electrification. We are looking at a time horizon of 5 years. So for us, this vision is in the implementation phase and should be operational by 2025. And what are we doing for that? I think clean energy package is the European clean energy package is going also in that direction. So it's responding actually to what the Commission is bringing forward for sure. It's responding to what market parties are asking, because they have also the digital solutions at hand, so they want to offer some new services. And it's just about now building up a coalition. We will bring out a vision paper around that in 2 months, and then together with the regulators, because they're regulators are quite active in the energy sector, with governments, just move to that system and start right now by advocating and implementing this to be ready by 2025, because consumers will ask for it. It will be needed if we want to manage the system, and if we don't want it to become the TSO that will block everything instead of facilitating everything.
Okay, thank you. Ijeoma, do you have any questions from the Q&A?
Yes, we have a lot of interesting questions. I'll take one. The first one is from Mehdi Montakabi. His question is, if you want to prioritize the 3 competing initiatives, at least in the policy debates, In what order do you find them effective in energy transition? 1, transactive energy models. 2, peer-to-peer trading. And 3, community self-consumption.
For me, it's not about making priorities to what should be the most effective model. I think what is the most important question is what is the need of different consumers that you see. For example, I could be more in a need with my father who has solar panels to be in a peer-to-peer exchange. Where my sister is maybe more into a community aspects because yeah, she wants to form a community with friends. I think we should aim for a system which allow the different initiatives and which is quite generic, if I can say so, to allow what is the choice of the consumer. And some will go for one system, some for another system. That I really leave open to the choice, and we think actually what I brought forward on market design, this should be possible.
Okay, another one from Jerome Coleman. His question is: I see a parallel between the energy sector layering and expertise and enterprise IT architecture, where data flows up through services and APIs towards customer applications. Do you see valuable cross-domain exploration to come up with new solutions, thus expanding the ecosystem and enterprise? Sorry, and expertise.
Expertise, yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Indeed, it's a model which can be quite generic and which has not the ambition just to limit it to the energy sector. So definitely there is some value to broaden that up. What we try to do already with bringing some actors outside the energy sector on the table, which has some expertise in other domains, which can reuse also some applications, some APIs. For example, banks are very good in transactions and settling transactions, etc. So they can bring in that. It's not something that is specific from the energy sector. So yeah. Our ecosystem is really not limited, so it was a big experience and a good experience for us to see that other companies from other sectors were quite interested, and to be honest, new for us. So we learn also every day, which is great. But I agree with your remark. Even try to broaden it up even more could be very useful.
Another one from Matt Hughes. His question is: with 60 plus gigawatts partners, 30 plus megawatt partners, and 5 system operators totaling your ecosystem, what are the challenges of managing these ecosystem partners? And how do you keep ecosystem partners on side without the relationship becoming one of dependence?
What we've tried to do is actually intervene as less as possible into the consortia that were created. So the only thing that we wanted to do is build up that, facilitate that ecosystem, which just tries to bring those partners on board. Then what we did is first of all organized some workshops where we said, okay, we want that consortiums are created to respond to a need, a pain from the end consumers in the energy sector. So that was a little bit the only guidance that we gave in the beginning. And then quite rapidly, some parties, some companies found each other and tried to build up a consortium with some clear rules, with some rules of engagement that we set up, and build up their ID. And before starting that ID, We also, and it took some time. It took 1 month, 1.5 months. We also made some not too heavy, but some legal documentation. There was a kind of MOU stating there was some agreement on the developments and the intellectual property between it. And then they start testing and developing and testing, of course, their ID. We really didn't intervene a lot. I think we as system operators, the TSO and the DSOs, yeah, we have a natural role to facilitate this because we don't have the commercial ambitions behind it. So it was we were quite privileged actually to drive those kind of ecosystems. But it went quite smooth, so smooth that we launched now a second ecosystem. But instead now in the second ecosystem to again open it very broad and just ask who is interested to join, we flipped it a little bit. So we stated we want to have some ideas around topics. And we had some companies that were interesting to work on those topics, and then we were so free to propose. For example, around EVs, you had a company was interested in doing so. We proposed that to other companies, and we matched. We did a little bit more matching between companies, but then of course left it again open to them to see whether they can come to an agreement to work on an ID. And this just actually was quite good, and we didn't have to intervene a lot in that ecosystem.
Okay. Another question from Franz Bajek. His question is, what are the main bottlenecks or bottleneck types in this energy ecosystem transition from the perspective of a transmission grid operator?
I don't see any bottlenecks. What we really wanted to do is that we wanted to facilitate. We think that energy and how you consume energy will evolve. Will evolve to more kind of services that will be given to the energy consumers. And to do so, we want to know and have some better insights on what are the business models of tomorrow, actually, to be sure that as a grid operator we can manage this. And that's the reason why we launched those ecosystems, and to see what are the new business models of tomorrow and what kind of ideas are with the end consumer, with the market parties, to see whether this is compatible with and how to operate the grid.
Okay.
Can I ask another question? So you mentioned at a particular moment the slide with different layers where you say, okay, we're still working on the physical level there, and we have the market services, but then you have this middle part there where you say that look, there's a different parties that so service companies and so on, so market opportunities that you're developing. So these are usually smaller service companies. Can also be startup companies. How do they get access to the data they should get from customers, from electricity producers, from infrastructure orchestrators like you? So, and what kind of problems do you see there? Because I have the impression that the market for getting access of the use, let us say, of energy data is not completely developed yet.
Yeah, indeed, and it's a very crucial one, Wim. Indeed, startups are struggling a lot with access to data, and although they have the technology answers to that, the second biggest part where they are struggling is to get the consent and to be GDPR proof when they receive it. So that's really actually why we are working also on the third axe or building block, by stating, okay, we think that it should be useful to set up kind of very lean data exchange layer, whereas regulated companies, we just equip all the consumers end consumers with the necessary technology to be able to have their data on that platform. This platform will not store any data, but just will route it to the service provider, to the startup of your choice. And we think this is also an activity in order to facilitate the creation of new business models that should be done by system operators. And that's why in the ecosystem, and the second phase of the ecosystem, because that's one of the learnings of the first phases, what we saw that a lot of companies struggled a lot by getting access to the data and being in GDPR compliant. So what we've did is we created a panel of test consumers which are willing to participate. We did a sign up, a call up for consumers and consumers that were interesting. We equipped or are equipping for the moment those consumers with the necessary technology, and will route their data to the new ideas that are now in development. And of course, we make sure that GDPR compliance is also taken care of.
So the Internet of Energies project is a very interesting project where you really make a lot of sandboxes, let's say, to experiment with different new business models. I think this is a great initiative, and I would advise everybody who is on the call, I would say, have a look at the Internet of Energy. But I have a question there, because these are experiments, these are projects. How do you make sure that they also can be sustainable in the long term when they go mainstream?
Yeah, that's the big challenge indeed. Excellent point here. And you see, we are now trying to set up those initiatives, those in sandbox, some we call it use cases or MVPs or whatever. And you see that we have our ambition to have our vision implemented by 2025. So this leaves a gap between the two timings. What we really wanted to do right now is moving from a kind of use case to demonstration scale, in order then to be able to industrialize. And that demonstration case is what we are working on. We are trying in a little bit more than focusing on Belgium, where we are active, of course, is now seeing if we can facilitate for the solar panel owners some services in order to valorize their overproduction. And then we're talking about potentially I mean, there are around 100,000 owners of solar panels, which are now in a situation where the valorization is less because some problems we had in Belgium. And so we're trying now to build up the system to maximum having 100,000 participants, but to bring it to the next level and to see whether this could be possible, and also to start discussing with the authorities whether you should have some exemptions, because maybe not the framework, the whole framework is present to allow the creation of all our IDs. So we are now entering into that phase, and we hope by this summer to have some first results and elements that we can show around this. Yeah, but for me, it's very important to move out at a certain point from those use cases. Yeah. Not directly go to your industrialization phase, but entering first the demonstration phase, where you still have it under control. You still can work with workarounds, because of course you have the classical system which is still in place. Everybody buys energy and electricity, so you're adding a new model on top of that. So you really have to be very careful on when you make the switch. And that's why it's so important to have some demonstration phase where you still can go with workarounds, but you see already the dynamics coming up.
Very good. Ijeoma, you have all the questions there.
Yes, thank you very much. A question from Dako Lugongja. His question is, how can digital transformation be sped up in some specific and traditional oriented areas? For example, the agriculture, given the ratio of young and aged people, not so eager to adopt all the benefits and challenges of DT. digitalization is mostly adopted among the young farmers and new ecosystems. So how to adopt the adoption or harmonize the harmonization?
Yeah, I'm not so familiar with other sectors, to be honest. Sorry for that. If I look at the energy sector, it is not about pushing your digital transformation or your digital technology through the end consumer. I think we should, and that's where companies, a lot of companies are focusing on. Yeah, what is first of all the need from the end consumer, and it's solving the need from the end consumer, and I think actually we are able to solve more and more needs of end consumers and a lot of end consumers by digitalization. That's something that was not possible before. And I think by showing that there are some benefits that automatically you speed up that kind of transformation. At least for the energy sector, that's for me something that I see. But I don't know, Wim, if you want to add on this for other sectors. Unfortunately, that's not my field.
Here because we have a few more minutes. So let me ask the last question, maybe a little bit out of, let's say, away, let's say, removed from what you have been saying. But you started with saying that Elia is, of course, not a private company. It's a TSO, which is government owned and so on. How comes that a company like yours or an organization like yours is taking a lead in the change in the industry? Because normally we expect that monopolists try to defend, let's say, the existing situation and not pulling everybody, let's say, to a complete new situation.
Yeah, we are convinced, and maybe that's a little bit strange as a monopolist. We are convinced that, or at least our motivation is that we don't want to become the dinosaurs of tomorrow. Even a monopolist, even a company that is operating the grid, and we could think of that the grid is there and will still be there in 30 or 40 or 50 years. Even then, I think it's absolutely necessary that we reinvent ourselves as well, and that's why we're looking to those systems. I think if you look at system operators, their revenues, their return is based on assets, on assets that they invest. They have mainly in Europe. If you look at it at TSOs, they have a kind of predefined regulation model that they negotiate with the regulator, and they have a kind of return on the investments they've made. So that's actually on how grid operators are remunerated. This is a model. If we don't change, if we don't look at also what services can bring, this is a model that will come under pressure. So it is sure that we also should look at what all of this how this will impact us ourselves, and how we should change, and maybe also move more and more to kind of service model than just an asset company.
Okay. So next time I'm gonna charge my iPhone, I'm gonna think differently about electricity. That's for sure. So thank you very much for that one.
You're welcome.
We have to move on. So thank you very much, David. That was a great presentation and a great Q&A. So, but we have to stop here. So before I say goodbye, let me just introduce to you what we're going to see next time. So remember, we're going to be here every 3 weeks on Thursday. Times may change a little bit depending on our speakers, because some speakers come from the United States, and so they want to talk to us a little bit later. But next time it's at 11 o'clock GMT, so or 12 o'clock in Central Europe. And we have 2 speakers. One is Erik Ransgaard. He is a radiologist and a leading expert in the use of artificial intelligence, and he will talk about the organizational and the ecosystem changes that are necessary to have a beneficial impact from artificial intelligence technologies in the use in hospitals. The second speaker is Vincent Dupont. He is currently a consultant, but he had like decades of experience in Microsoft, and he will talk about the numerous or the important barriers in using medical data while we want to move while we want to use this data to decrease the cost of medical care while we are increasing the quality. And so he has like ample experience in this area, so purely in the data area. He knows all the barriers to use them in the medical applications, and he will certainly give us a unique view on that. So two people from medical area, but two completely different people. So this webinar comes to an end. I thank you for your attention. I'm very sorry for the many questions that remain unanswered. But we're going to try to answer them anyway, let's say in the next days, or maybe if some interesting questions are there, we're going to put them on the website. Remember, these videos will be recorded and they will be made public on the CODES, or the Center of Digital Economy of the Surrey University or the Surrey Business School. So it's going to be public there, but you're going to get an email where you're going to see the link to these videos. So thank you for your attention. We see each other back in 3 weeks, and I hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye.